To our meetings, plural, tonight. We're going to start out with our redevelopment agency meeting, and the date is April 4th, and our start time is 5:33. So we have about several items here on this on our redevelopment agency meeting agenda, but as usual, we start out with a set of minutes which we have that we need to approve. So council, I'm going to turn it over to you to see if there's any corrections or changes. If not, then I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as written for the March 7th, 2024 meeting.
I'll make a motion we adopt the minutes for the March 7th, 2024 RDA meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the minutes as written. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item number 2, which is the Eastgate Economic Development Project Plan. That's the information is going to be presented by Mr. Longcrow.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am pleased to be here tonight to present the items on the agenda. Good time to be in Layton. We'll start with a little background for those who may not be aware. The Eastgate Economic Development Project Area Plan was approved and adopted in October of 2007. It was initiated in 2011, or in other words, that's when we started to collect tax increment from Davis County, and it expires in 2035. The Eastgate Master Plan was adopted in October of 2009. And we use that to guide development since that time. From the beginning, the project area has developed slowly, but we've had some development, and you can see that there's still quite a bit of development or developable land remaining in the area. This is important for the subject we'll be talking about this evening, but the items in purple show the areas that are undeveloped currently. There are 3 major reasons for this. The number 1 is topography. Manufacturing requires large parcels, usually rectangular in shape, that are flat, and this area is sloped, and there's a significant expense to develop this property. The number 2 reason is roads and infrastructure are not completely in, and this, again, is an expense that is quite high. Not only that, there's not really a return on investment for roads and infrastructure, and they're usually turned over to the public. And so this requires usually some way to finance that. And then the 3rd reason is timing, whether the market has not caught up with the development costs, or in other cases, such as Wasatch Waste Integrated, they're still using their property. They're not quite ready to sell. With that said, we've attracted quite a few great employers and partners in the area, such as Chanakey and Kilmac, JL Ventures, West Test, Rantec, and Guru Technologies, among others who we're currently working with as well. There has been quite a bit of interest in the Eastgate in recent months, and that's led to our interest in amending the plan. The current budget has indicates that the Davis School District will leave after 15 years. This is a big deal because they collect a majority of the property taxes in Layton, well, in Davis County, and this will affect the amount of assistance that we can provide to increase the development in the area or support development in the area. As you can see, the other taxing entities all are going throughout the life of the EDA, or 25 years. Which led the agency to direct staff to approach the school district and request that they consider extending their participation in the EDA. which we did. And after several meetings on October 3rd, the Davis School Board unanimously approved our request to extend their participation at 90% until 2035, consistent with the other taxing entities. This is a requirement of Utah Code. And on December 6th, we met with the taxing entity committee, who also approved this request to amend the budget and allow the school district to continue their participation. This is another requirement of the Utah Code to amend the budget. And recently, on March 7th, the agency approved an interlocal agreement between Layton City, or between the redevelopment agency and Davis School District, to extend their collection period and participation at 90% from January 1st, 2026 until December 31st of 2035, when the EDA expires. Again, this is a requirement of Utah Code before we hold this public hearing. So with that, staff is proposing that we amend the plan as currently written, remove any references to the school district leaving after 15 years, and also to amend the chart that shows projected increment to reflect up until 2022 what we've actually received, and then after 2022 the projected increment until the end of the EDA in 2035. This changes that projected estimate of increment received for the entire EDA from about 30 million to 54,868,680. With that, staff recommends the board consider approving RDA Resolution 2404, amending the Eastgate Economic Development Project Area Plan budget following a public hearing. And I'm open to answer any questions if you have any at this time.
Okay. Council, I'll bring this back to you to ask any questions. If not, then I'll look for a motion to open the public hearing. But any questions? Okay.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we open the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now is the time that anyone in the audience who wishes to speak regarding the budget amendment for the RDA, you're welcome to come up to the podium here and state your name and address for the record, and can let us know your thoughts.
Good evening. My name is Shane Steer. Our work address, because we're developers, is up there right as part of the Eastgate Development Agency, right by Guru Technologies at 1645 East Highway 193. I'd like to thank you for letting me express my thoughts about the Eastgate Economic Development Project Plan. Some of the benefits that we have seen on our project include the following. Number one, the increase in the available funds that have been allocated to our project allows for our pro forma and our budget to work, which in turn increases our investor interest and the ability to seek bank financing. This allowed us to develop a built-to-suit site for the long-term tenants that will be in the building. Number two, we were able to offset some of the costs related to engineering and design, retaining wall installation, grading and soil retention, and the water-wise landscaping and soil stabilization. The water-wise landscaping will reduce the amount of water that is used on the property, and in turn will make more water available through the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District. That's a huge benefit to the citizens and the businesses here in Layton City. The third benefit that we've seen from this program is that the project that we are developing will increase the tax base of Layton City and the individuals that work here on a daily basis. Our project will bring revenue to the surrounding businesses, including eateries, gas stations, and grocery stores. These are decade-long benefits to Layton City and the citizens that are here in Layton. We are grateful as a representative of the Layton Grandview 2 LLC. We are very grateful for the school district's involvement, which has allowed us to add a beautiful building off of Highway 193. We are also grateful to the city of Layton for their help throughout the contracting and the development process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, seeing that there's no one else that wishes to speak on this topic at this time, Council, I'll bring it back to you. I'll still entertain any questions you might have or concerns. If not, then I'll look for a motion to close the public hearing and take action.
Well, and I just had a question. The school district's term was 15 years. Everyone else was 25 years. Is there a reason why they were different than the rest of the taxing entities?
No, that seemed to be consistent with the agreements with the school district over the three that we have currently. And so I think it was just something they were doing consistently. It's not consistent throughout the county. I'm not sure why it was different here, but that's the only reason that I know of.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Long. Just so the other RDAs, the school district is 15 as well in the.
If you recall, in the RDA, it was 15 years, and they agreed to extend that a few years ago at 50% until 2029 when that expires. The CBA has a life of 15 years only, and so it would be consistent.
Thanks.
I have one question.
Sure.
And this, I don't know, you'll have the answer to this, I'm certain, but in looking at the proposed funds versus what was actually spent over time, just wondered if you could speak to why some of those numbers were a little bit less in the estimation and how we expect the current estimates moving forward to be more in line.
Yeah, that will be explained in further items, but for now, I can tell you that the recession had a lot to do with that. The proposed growth that was expected to occur at the time didn't happen, and so that put the EDA behind quite a bit. And we've been pretty careful also with who we've discussed development with in this area, specifically along the fence. We hoped to have an aerospace or defense related employer adjacent to Hill Air Force Base. And that has, we could have filled that with anything, you name it. We've had a lot of proposals for that area, but we've kind of held our ground on that, and it's served us well now.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll just make a quick comment on myself. I think that this is a wise move. I mean, I appreciate, once again, the school district in their participation, willing to extend that, and knowing that the potential that can take place up here and will create very good, high-paying jobs for our citizens. And so I think it's a wise move on what we're doing here. So, but on top of that, Council, I'll bring it back to you, though, to go ahead and close the meeting and take action.
I move that we close the public hearing and approve Resolution 24-04.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the resolution. I'll do a roll call vote on this. So I'll start down here with Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Edmondson.
Aye. Councilmember
Thomas.
Aye.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item number 3 here. And just for the record, Lon's going to be presenting the entire redevelopment agenda tonight. So I won't be introducing you every time.
I apologize.
What's that?
I said I apologize in advance.
No, that's good. To have this many items, first off, let me just explain. To have this many items on our redevelopment agency meeting is an anomaly. We haven't had it before, so that really tells you the growth and the opportunities that are coming into our city, and the fact that we're utilizing funding appropriately to create, like I said, good paying jobs, support within the community, and really making Layton the place to be. So with that, Lon, I'll have you go ahead and take over.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. Item number 3, Resolution 2401, is an agreement for development of land between the agency and JL Ventures. If you recall, we currently have an agreement with JL Ventures. It was adopted in 2021. It was based on a capital investment of about $48 million, with proposed 6 buildings. There was about 500,000 square feet with that plan. At the time, we weren't certain as to the number of jobs or what industry or when the completion date would be for the final building, building number 6. The agency provided about $1.7 million in upfront incentive towards grading. The cost was substantially higher than that. And that agreement was written where the agency would reimburse itself with tax increment annually upfront. So it would receive the first 4 years of tax increment before the developer might see some additional tax increment. That agreement also provided 75% of the increment to the developer, and that was based on the fact that we actually didn't know who the employer would be or the tenant. And there's something else, but I lost my thoughts, so I'll just continue. That agreement also included a matrix. That matrix was an incentive that we hoped would help the developer obtain a prime defense contractor or subcontractor or a subprime contractor in the defense or aerospace industry. Since this was adopted, the owner/developer has been hard at work, and they have done just that. The project has substantially changed. With the 2021 plan, we had about 500,000 square feet. The current plan is just under 1 million square feet. The capital investment that they are projecting previously was $48 million. The new investment is $545 million. To give the board some context, in 2022, the total valuation for the entire EDA was about $175 million. So this is a significant development. The number of buildings in the previous plan was 6. They're proposing 7. Again, we didn't know the number of jobs. We currently have proposed 3,000 jobs in the aerospace and defense industry. Their average will be substantially higher than the county average. The property valuation, again, will increase approximately 5 times, or actually 11 times, sorry. If the county certified tax rate did not change between now and 2035, which it will, but we could see almost a 3 times return to each of the taxing entities based on this development alone. With that, there's some costs, just as there was before. That's increased from $42 million in a gap to about $50 million. When we say a gap, these are costs that aren't typical with your typical manufacturing job related to this development and or anything in the EDA because of the topography. That's laid out in this chart right here. You can see that those items that are actually highlighted in green and yellow are the ones, according to our agreement, that the developer qualifies to receive 100%, well, 91.5% reimbursement for on an annual basis throughout the term of the EDA, which is about half of the total project costs for the gap. That doesn't include the other typical costs. This shows basically the purpose of this is to show you a conceptual drawing of potential building locations, but it's to show you the topography, the amount of grading and soil that will have to be removed to make this happen. These are very large buildings. The building that's up there right now that I'm sure all of you have seen is not going to be the biggest building, and so it's a pretty significant project, and those costs are substantial. So the biggest difference between the current proposed agreement and the one that's already existing is the previous agreement required the EDA to receive tax increment up front, which I think was between 3 and 4 years before the developer would see any tax increment. The proposed agreement actually allows the agency to retain 8.5% over the life of the EDA to collect its reimbursement for the $1.7 million. The 91.5% will go to the developer. That would provide some upfront capital for this project, and actually, it's capital throughout the project to try to recoup some of those costs. And with that, staff is open to any questions. Staff recommends that the board consider approval of RD Resolution 2401, which is an agreement for the development of land between the Redevelopment Agency of Layton City and JL Ventures LLC.
Okay, any questions, council?
For the purposes of audience and live streaming, could you clarify that the amount of money, like this 91.5%, that the agency is or that the developer is requesting the agency allow them to take on going up front, that is coming from tax increment as opposed to the agency providing that funding? Could you just explain that a little bit?
Yes. So every year, the developer will pay property taxes, and a portion of those property taxes, 90%, is returned to the agency from Davis County. And from that percentage that the agency receives from Davis County, 91.5% of those would go to the developer for those qualifying items that include infrastructure, which is power. Actually, and this may increase. The developer's already talking about maybe a substation to support this project, which will add to that transformer cost. But the grading is significant, about $12 million to grade the property, and some road improvements as well. So there's those infrastructure items that would qualify. So not 100% of that increment would go towards the project unless they extend Fairfield or they build a substation. Then it might be a little higher than that approximately half amount. But that's where the tax increment would come from. It's based on taxes that they pay based on their property and market value, just as any other property is assessed. It will not affect anyone else's property taxes.
Good statement. Thank you.
And maybe this question might be for Darren, but our upfront cash incentive is secured by this trust deed, right? That they have to put this trust deed in and execute it and record it against the site prior to payment and in favor of us, which shall remain in effect until the full amount of whatever we've given them up front is reimbursed to the agency. Is that right, Lon?
Yes. In fact, that trust deed's still recorded. It was already recorded with the first agreement, and that's going to stay the same. And so it's already in effect.
Okay. I guess maybe help me understand how, obviously this project's got bigger and we're grateful that it got bigger. But when a typical project gets bigger in another area of the city, then the developer would be financing that through commercial lending of some kind. And here it seems like we're using the tax increment to fund it, but also they're getting it up front, and then we get paid back over a duration time. So maybe can you just talk me through just tax increment generally in this specific area, and why this is I wouldn't call it an exception, but why this makes good public policy for the city to be involved in these kind of transactions outside of a commercial lending sphere?
This project in particular is a different animal. The owner/developer actually will construct the building for the tenant. Typically, it's the other way around. They construct a building and then find a tenant. That building is typically constructed under their specifications, and they have all of the funding and funding streams figured out for that purpose. In this instance, they're being told what to build by the tenant. They're finding the financing for that, and then they will build the building and be the landlord for the tenant throughout the duration that they're in there. But aside from that, Eastgate alone is kind of a different animal because of the topography. We decided this would be a good place for manufacturing. Manufacturing is used to flat ground, usually square, rectangular in shape, and we don't have any of that up there. So those costs are significant, and if we want to compete with other similar properties in the region, we have to provide something to make that equal. And so that's what tax increment helps provide. And again, tax increment is created through new growth, and it's paid by the developer. It's not paid by other property owners. The way we've set it up here in Layton is great through reimbursement. We did provide some upfront for the grading just because of the substantial costs involved. And the reality of finding financing for a project like this is a reality we have to deal with. So I believe it makes good sense for the city to provide this incentive in this area if this is what we want. In this case, it's providing good paying jobs. It's providing an industry that will grow and significantly impact the Layton city.
Yeah, thank you for that. With the tenant already known to the developer, is that going to help them facilitate additional commercial lending if they needed to down the road? Does that help knowing that they're building it to suit, like the gentleman mentioned, or is it based on the developer themselves, not necessarily who the tenant is?
I don't know if I can speak directly to that. I think knowing the tenant might help the lender, but I think the relationship between the developer and the lender is more important than the tenant.
Okay.
In some instances.
And then I guess the last question I had was over by Home Depot, we had a similar thing where there was some additional costs and we put some tax increment forward. I can't remember, and if you can't remember, it's okay either too, but what were the terms of that one in terms of the city being reimbursed? Was it because they were getting it up front, I believe, as well?
They received some tax increment up front. Actually, the RDA, oddly enough, a different entity with the same board, determined actually that we wouldn't be reimbursed for that. They actually would be required to maintain a detention pond for the development on the in perpetuity. Right. And so that's why the agency decided not to require that.
Right. Fine, I appreciate that. I mean, this is just thanks for coloring that for me. It's important because this, I mean, like you mentioned in your introductory statements, this is something we've been waiting for a long time, this type of development, not just, I mean, it's a big deal. You saw the numbers didn't lie about what this potentially could be. So I appreciate you just letting me ask some questions about the technical legal details. So thank you, Lon.
Okay. Mr. Marshall?
Yeah, just maybe a comment. This development doesn't happen without this funding. I mean, as you get closer to taking care of infrastructure and taking care of the topography, then the financing part of it makes more sense for the lender. Like, oh, okay, so back to that gap funding sort of element to this. So I guess good job in you mentioned standing our ground, so to speak, with the type of tenant. This board or agency looking forward a couple of years ago of, hey, let's help with the grading of the one to get the spec building and it's been a good project, and it's been and we've been patient. You've been patient. And this is a big deal, and I'm glad it's happening, and grateful for your tenacity in making it. I mean, you're going to say it's not you, it's everybody, which I agree. But thank you for being the point person on it.
It is everybody, and it is critical. It's critical, and the school district's participation, continued participation, is critical, and so we definitely appreciate everyone in the process.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. I guess we'll go ahead and take action on this. All I need is a motion to approve, and then we can vote on it. Then we'll go on to the next item.
I'll make a motion we approve RDA Resolution 24-01.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the resolution 24-01. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. The next item, RDA Resolution 2402, is an agreement for the development of land between the agency and Dreamland LLC, who is Keomac. Keomac constructed their building through an agreement in 2016. RDA Resolution 1502 approved an agreement that allowed 100% of the tax increment to go to Keo and Keomac to stay in Layton and construct a building in Eastgate. It was about 100,000 square feet plus about 25,000 more in the second floor. A substantial development, number 2 in the EDA next to Janicki. And they've been a great employer and a great partner. Keomac is proposing to construct a 50,000 square foot building just south of their existing building for several reasons. They've done very well in obtaining contracts. They actually invented a product over the past year and obtained an agreement with the Department of Defense to construct, the Air Force to construct those products. And then they've also moved into other items of the other industries, actually, but composites and similar things they do. So they needed a building that would provide space for some non-classified development of product. And not only that, they need to find a different way to attract employees as well. As you can imagine, between the Air Force and the other aerospace and defense employers in the region, competition for employees is pretty steep. And so they're proposing to construct some space in here that would allow them to attract and provide a paid apprenticeship for future employees and to help train them. And not only that, they've proposed to offer this space to other employers who are willing to enter into an agreement with them, which is great. I know this has been something that Keo's wanted to do for a lot of years, and so we're pretty excited for him and for this project. So they're proposing to build this building. The proposed investment's about $8.6 million, which I just have to say is unfortunate because it was about $8.8 million to build their 130,000 square foot building, and it's $8.6 million to build their 50,000 square foot building 7 years later. So that's where we are. But we're excited. So what this agreement does is offer $400,000 up front to help with the grading. You see the site work's about $1.5 million. This is almost identical to what we did with West Test for their grading as well, for their development. This will be repaid to the EDA starting in 2026 at $40,000 a year until the EDA closes, and we'll be reimbursed the $400,000. There's a reason that we're waiting for that. I don't want to go into that unless you want to ask. But the EDA will be repaid with this agreement.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to ask. I just didn't want to explain it. So with the school district not leaving, previously they were going to leave. And so actually, if we started taking $40,000 a year from Keomac right now, he would actually lose tax increment that he would have otherwise not lost with this development. But starting in 2026, with an expected removal of DSD, he's actually gaining money because of their continued participation. And so that's the reason for that.
Okay. thank you for being straight there, because I know that just begged the question from everybody. But I'm looking at this project again, and I'm thinking, that's very kind of Keo to put in a training center that's going to be available for not just his employees, but I mean, really creating the workforce that we need around here. And again, this just shows that, the development is happening finally. It was a foresight in the previous elected officials, which we're happy to be able to bring this to fruition. So I appreciate it. And I don't know, council, do you have any comments on this or any questions? Pretty quiet group tonight. Okay, go ahead.
I do think it's refreshing for a company of this size and this caliber to be interested in offering this type of a training program to help to educate and, prepare the workforce that we need for the future. So, I mean, I just kudos to them for even bringing that up. I worked in workforce services for many years, and externships are things that help all of our young folks now, but also those who choose not to go to college and do other different things. But to have businesses that are willing to participate has always been the hard part. So to have a business like this that is volunteering that and has their own program and is willing to offer to others is really a benefit for this area. And I just hats off to them for even having that as a part of their proposal.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll bring it back to council then for an action on this item, and I'm just going to make one closing statement here that it seems to wrap up this entire area. It's kind of like if you will build it, they will come. We finally had somebody that built it, and now they're coming. So thanks to all the businesses and partnerships here that have taken place to really kind of get this area up and running. So thank you. Council, I need a motion regarding item number 4. Our resolution 24-04. Who wants to make the motion?
Mayor, I move that we adopt resolution 24 is it 04? I can't read.
02, sorry.
Well, second.
It's been moved in second that we approve resolution 24-02. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to item number 5, and I believe 5 and 6 are kind of go hand in hand. So Lon, I'll let you handle that how you want.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to present these both together and explain why. So resolutions 2405 and 2406 are actually the same owner under different ownerships. If the board recalls, about a year ago, actually, you entertained a similar request where you transferred ownership to Winkle Rock LLC in order to construct their apartments. This is part of their development arm, and so they created an LLC for the development arm. Now they're trying to move on to their commercial space. I want to show you. You can see in the map, there's 2 commercial buildings as part of phase 1 that will be built along Main Street as part of this mixed-use project. Item number 5, which is resolution 2406, includes the 3 north parcels. And item number 6, which is 2405, includes the south parcel. We have 2 different agreements with the same entity, one under FM Winkle Family LLC, the other under North Utah Holdings LLC. Both agreements have similar obligations and a similar requirement that requires the board to approve any transfer of ownership. In this case, they're requesting to transfer their ownership from Winkle Rock LLC to Winkle Rock DE LLC to move forward with the commercial portion of this project. Staff recommends that the board consider approving both RDA Resolution 2405 and 2406, approving the consent to transfer ownership from Winkle Rock LLC to Winkle Rock DE LLC.
Okay, any questions or clarification needed on this one?
I do need a little bit of clarification. We've been dealing with this particular owner and or developer for a while. So my question is specifically with Winkle Rock DE LLC. I believe when we talked about this a year ago, maybe even longer than that, it was of interest for us, at least I'll speak for myself. It was of interest to me that this move into the developer's hands so that things could move along in a more quickly fashion. So would the action being requested tonight facilitate that moving from the owner's primary decision-making to the developer's primary decision-making? And I don't know if I can say what I just said, Darren, but I did. So correct me if I can't. But will that facilitate movement?
This should facilitate movement for the commercial part of phase one. And as you probably all know, the apartments have started construction some time ago, and they're moving forward following the previous action. And so we expect that this will help them move forward with the commercial part of that project. I can't
Go ahead.
promise anything, but this is what we expect.
So my question is the remaining part of this. What does that look like? The vision of the rest of the area. I believe there's still mobile homes. What does the timeline look like? Those families, as Bettina mentioned, we've had some things happen here over the last few years, and just wondering about that.
So our agreements, which is the item here, only reflect phase one. Actually, they don't apply to the other properties. The proposed master plan for that project is to include additional apartments, possibly a hotel, and possibly some office space, and possibly a parking structure that would help support the front runner station and the development. We don't know exactly when they propose to start construction on phase two. And I wish I could tell you more than that, but I can't.
Is there a representative here from this group?
No.
Okay. Ms. Sundass, any other questions or concerns?
You might have addressed this, but just for clarification, all previous agreements with Winkle Rock LLC are in place. We're just changing ownership, right? Okay, thank you.
Correct. The obligations still remain as well. Okay. And both owners are part of those obligations. So.
Okay. Motion.
Okay, there's no other questions, and I'll entertain an action here.
I'll make the motion that we adopt RDA Resolution 24-06.
And 05.
And as well as RDA Resolution 24-05.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt both resolutions tonight for the name change of Northern Utah Holdings LLC with the Winkle Family LLC. So with that, council, it's been moved in second. So all in favors, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Lon, you did a great job tonight. Board members, as council, thank you very much. I believe that's our last item on our redevelopment agency meeting. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to come out of our RDA meeting and go into our regular scheduled work meeting for this evening.
I move we come out of the RDA meeting and go into the work meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll acknowledge that. Time here, and knowing the amount of items we have on the agenda, I think what we'll do is take the reports and we'll move them to the end based upon time if we have it. That way we can just go ahead and get updated on the other items. Yeah, you can go ask them to come in.
Yeah, thank you. Bad when you know what I'm thinking.
Hey, we've been around each other. We know. But anyway, I appreciate everyone here for tonight for our work meeting. We do have actually 3-4 items here that are pretty, 3 of them that we definitely need to spend some time on. But before we start, we actually had an update from the Arts Council. So Councilmember Thomas was going to get that committee because they were waiting in the other room for us. We'll go ahead and start with them, and then we'll go as the regular scheduled agenda item is, which Mr. Probert will take over item number 4 when we get to that. So right now, we'll go ahead and hear for the update of our Davis Arts Council. So ladies, don't sit down.
We held you in the green room.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's how we feel. Thank you for letting us visit you. I'm Terry Cowan. I am the almost gone Director of Development from the Davis Arts Council, where we are celebrating our 45th year. And we just want to extend our gratitude for your continued and generous support. Your willingness to be a partner in everything we do is truly a gift. So on behalf of all of us, our lovely board member, our lovely almost Senior Director of Development, we've been able to serve year-round now. We go into schools, we go into senior centers, and we just want to thank Layton City for recognizing our work and the importance of the arts in our community. I go to conferences all the time where they'll be like, oh my gosh, tell us how to get along with municipalities. And I think, how lucky are we that it's not an issue? It's been such a blessing to have a council that believes in the work that we're doing. Last year, we served close to 40,000 people with our programming, 80% of which we're able to keep absolutely free. Without the generous support of RAMP and the city, we would not be able to do that. And we believe that the work that we do fulfills our mission of strengthening and enriching our community. The patrons that we have also bring economical value to the city. I'm just a couple of numbers. Last year, of course, most of our people are from Davis County, but we also had Weber County, Salt Lake County, and actually 17 counties throughout the state, not including Davis. And we also had 62 patrons from outside of Utah, 17 states and 2 countries. That's if you count Costa Rica and Canada as other countries, which I know you do. I know you have.
No, it's okay. I don't count it, but my wife.
I know. Most importantly, as we change and grow, I'm so happy to introduce that our new Senior Director of Development, Kim Wojciechowski. Kristen grew up in Clearfield, so she's a Davis County girl. She owned Strider's over in Layton. She was the race director for the Ogden Marathon, and she's worked as Director of Development in the University of Utah. And most recently, Weber State, and we're so excited to have her. You're going to love working with her. She's awesome. I've got to work with her for 2 weeks now. And I just want her to be able to say hello to you. And she has our new season, if you want to share a couple of shows, and you get a handy dandy calendar magnet to put on your fridge.
Handy dandy.
Right, there you are.
Anyway, thank you for having us, and I'm excited for this new role. I have a lot to learn from Terry. I told her I'll have her on speed dial, but I'm excited to announce the new season. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at the program thus far, but I did bring a calendar, some of the favorites. What has been your favorite?
Well, I was in charge of the programming committee, so if you don't like the season, tell Dave Thomas. Bachmacher Overdrive will be back. They're getting a lot of press because Randy Bachman is touring with them again, which has been unusual. Philip Phillips, who won American Idol a couple of seasons ago, is on the season. Colby Calais, which everyone loved when she came before, is on the season. Ricky Skaggs. And just as a heads up, we have some great special engagements, which are a little pricier, but to keep things available to everyone in our community, we have 4 shows on our regular season that are $10 for a general admission. You can't even see a movie for $10. We have 2 shows on our regular season that are $15, and the most expensive show on our regular season, In the Grass, is $20. So it's really affordable because of great sponsors like Layton City and First Community Bank. Sorry. And then, are you going to talk about this Sunday shows? So our Sunday shows are free, but just so you know, we had 140 applicants to be artists on our Sunday season. And that was quite an undertaking for the staff. Emilio, who, if you haven't met him, he's great. We got it down to, I think there's 12, 13. So that was a lot that we all had to listen to. Joy, Mayor Petro was on that committee. We got to listen to a lot of music, some good, some bad. And so our free Sunday shows continue to be popular, and they're completely free. Our movies are geared to families this year. I'm sorry, I'm taking over. If you can't tell, I love the Davis Arts Council, and now I will stop Kristen going.
No. Friday movie nights, all the good things.
Just before you go on, Sunday concerts used to be what the season was. Literally, they were what was on the season and how good it was. Now, Sunday concerts have raised the bar quite a bit.
Yeah, but it's still local artists.
No, they're local.
Great.
They're local, but it's a lot better than having the Three Amigos sing songs and that.
And 100%, it's because of the generosity of RAMP,
For sure.
that we're able to offer some money to those performers that are coming. So we're getting a higher quality performer on
the Sunday series, you're saying.
The Sunday series. Dave's completely right. If you look at what we had even 15 years ago on our regular season, it's comparable to what you can see for free on Sunday night at the amphitheater. I told Dave the other day, I feel like the Davis Arts Council and the Kenley Amphitheater, because of the city's support, is really a jewel in Layton City. And he was nice, and he said, no, it's the jewel. So that made me feel better.
Why don't you speak to how long that jewel's been around?
Dave?
What? As long as I have.
No, you guys are 40 plus years. Come on.
Yeah. This is our 45th. This will be our 45th year. It's our birthday this year. So, and for those of you who are not born then, you will know. No, but I mean, literally, it used to be a patio, a slab out there where you would carry your own chair. And yes, you can still bring in a chair, but to what it's grown to, I mean, we have people all the time who come and find us and are like, how did I not know about this? I will never go to a concert at again, because
you're on your way out. You're okay.
I know, right? It's an intimate space that people can, I mean, even if you're sitting at the back of the grass, it's still way better than other venues. So we are thrilled to have another season. And one of the Sunday shows this year is a Creedence Clearwater tribute. Cool. And that's a Sunday night show, a free Sunday night show. That should be really fun.
Kate, speak a little bit about the national anthem. I have to say, I love all these artists coming in, the professionalism that you guys have, but the national anthem, the fact that you guys do that every time and you have auditions for it, right?
We do. People have to submit to sing the national anthem. We used to just let whoever was the sponsor of the show that night pick someone, and it kind of ended up having the same rotation, but now we have people submit, and we're actually going to start that, I think, next week. And again, we have tons of people send in. They have to actually send in an audition tape of them singing, preferably in a public place, because what you do in your living room can change drastically when you step in front of an audience. So, we request specifically, please make it traditional. Please make it
not an audition for a singing show, and so hopefully we're able to fulfill that every year.
Very good. Okay. I love it.
Questions?
You guys have any questions?
Thank you.
Yes, you're gonna love Kristen. She's awesome.
And I brought 6 of these, but I'll drop some others by.
Okay.
Well, Terry, you're not going far.
I'll be around. You can't
We
get
know
rid
we'll
of me.
see you around, but
Oh,
I
for
do
sure.
appreciate all your service and your generosity over the years, and really your dedication towards the funding. Because I mean, without you working as hard as you have over the years, this group wouldn't be where they're at as well. So
Thank you.
I deeply
Thanks.
appreciate that. And,
Y'all are awesome.
Just
I mean, the whole organization we appreciate. So thank you, Don, all your efforts.
just one thing to mention. I was probably related to the only lady that had to know the season in January. Okay, Aunt Jean. You guys all know Aunt Jean. And so she bugged me forever, every day. Who's playing? I don't even know who's playing. But the one thing I told her, and I believe this to be truer than most things I say, it doesn't matter who's playing. If you come, you'll be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
You may not like country, but it's a good country group. You may not like a lot of things, but it's well done. It's entertaining. And when you leave, you don't feel like I just wasted 2 hours of my life there.
For sure.
Everybody walks out of there with a good feeling. And I can say that probably been in there more than most. and seeing it, even when they were terrible, people walked out saying it was good. I'm like, we must have been sitting in a different spot. But anyway, I just want to say that even though no matter what you've done with your seasons over the years, whether you go gaga over them, they are entertaining, and it's a great night out with whoever you take, your family, your wife, your spouse, your best other. I don't know how to
Awesome.
go on beyond that.
Yeah, that's what we hope the experience is. So thank you so much for your continued support.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and go on now to item number 4 of our work meeting session, which is a budget discussion that will be presented by Mr. Tracy Probert.
Mayor, members of the council, got me all confused sitting in here doing this. What do I need over here at the pulpit? Anyway, we just wanted to take a few minutes and go through the enterprise funds, give you an update of where they're at. Won't get into a lot of the details, but at least these slides, as I share them with you, and I can send them to you after the meeting as well, so you can review them. For example, the water fund here, just looking at the bottom of that, you can see where the net assets are in the fund, which shows the health of the fund, where it's at, rate increase that occurred a couple of years ago. July 1 of 22 has had the effect that we wanted. I didn't have time in the end, but I was going to pull 2022 into here before 2023. This revenue was, 10 million something. One, because of drought and all of the restricted usage, and which was good. We asked people to do it. They did it. Mayor had her big campaign, and that really had a big effect on the water supply, but it also affected revenue. The water usage came back up a little bit last year, and then also the increase in the rate to help support all of the activities that are out there. You can see this number here in 2024 on capital, $26 million in projects that are out there. That's a big reason for that increase, was to help support all those projects. Now, a lot of that wasn't all programmed in 2024. You've got carryover because there's multi-year projects. But ultimately, what we're estimating at the end of 2025, the budgets there is to end up at about 13.6 million in reserve. That'll keep us on target for the rest of the 5-year plan that's out there and beyond that so far. There will be a discussion, I think, in a future meeting with Weber Basin Water about their plans and rates and things surrounding that, but we'll leave that for a future meeting. And if you have questions as we go, just stop me, but I'll try and buzz through this because I know we have another presenter after me. This slide will show you just where the consumption was. The red being a year when we really brought it down because we were asked to because of the drought, and then 2023 water season bumping back up a bit. The stormwater fund. So we look at that again, looking at the bottom line of that fund after we do a lot of projects. I mean, here you have about $12 million in projects over 3 budget years, and we end up sitting in a good position at the end of that with $11 million in reserve. We have busted through most of our impact fee reserve in that fund, and a lot of that goes back, and Steve could tell you a lot more about it, the restriction on impact fees and only being allowed to have a 10-year plan. This is the effect of that. Those projects come through, and now you don't have impact fees available to help future projects until we redo the plan and do something with that. And there's no saying that a new plan would revise the amount we collect either. But anyway, again, healthy fund, in a good position. Don't see any reason for rate increase or anything like that at this point in the stormwater fund. In the sewer fund, we talked about this a little bit in the all-day budget meeting, and we'll talk about it most likely after the council meeting and maybe an extended work meeting on rates. And we could see that in end of 2023, we had $3.2 million in reserve, healthy fund, but we've had some big projects come through. Almost $4 million in projects over the 3-year period. And because our side of the rate, it's important for people out there to understand the $29.45 a month that you pay in your utility bill, $21.50 of that goes to North Davis Sewer District for treatment. We only keep $7.95 of that bill to help with all of our lines, our personnel, keeping that side of it up and running. And so when we look at our reserves and we do some larger projects on our side, it eats into it pretty quick. So, and we'll talk about that rate type analysis a little bit later, but those large projects have brought us into a position where reserves are lower than we'd like them to be. On the street lighting fund, again, that fund plugging along really well, done a large amount of projects. In 2023, we had $2.1 million there, waiting for some projects to kind of queue up. They were on the plan. So then you have a little over $2 million in projects over the 3-year period. We still have a good, healthy reserve, I would consider, for that fund of $600,000. There isn't really anything in there that would be catastrophic, right? I mean, if you have a major water line or a major sewer line go out and you have to bring a lot of money into it, then you need that in reserves. Your street light goes out, treat it like a 4-way stop, right? I mean, we could get that fixed fairly soon. But
you have a question? It's okay, Mayor?
Sure.
With Highway 89, I know when we were looking at this before with 89 project, we were upgrading lights up there, making it all uniform, and maybe taking some projects from within the city and putting them in the back of the line because of getting all that done, because of the timing. Are we, maybe it's a question for Steve, are we back on schedule for street lights in the areas of the city that just currently don't have any?
Yeah, that would probably be a question for Steve.
And he probably knows the exact answer too, because he's brilliant.
I didn't look at the very details of what's proposed in those projects, but I would assume that would be the shift. That's been the goal all along, is once that major project was done, then we would shift back to doing the neighborhood projects.
All right. Well, wait. When we get Steve up there, we'll ask him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and finish, and then we'll have him come back up.
The refuse fund, that's plugging along. That may be affected depending on what happens with the recycling type thing, but that isn't for this 2025 budget, so we haven't really addressed it here. This would be your standard, what we've been doing over the last few years. We have about $1 million in that fund. Right now, the pricing that we have with Waste Management would be that would reduce our fund balance over the next 2 more years, I believe, on that contract. And then we would renew it and reschedule our prices accordingly. If we maintain that healthy reserve, then we may or may not have to have a rate increase at that time. depending on how the pricing comes in. So, but overall, healthy fund there. The pool fund, one, we don't really normally carry much of a reserve in the in the pool fund. What did I?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say that. In the pool fund, just because it's subsidized by the general fund. And so you'll see that for 2024, the current year that we're in, I still need to work through some things on that and see how the revenues continue to come in for the year. But I may be bringing a budget amendment back to you to transfer some additional funds from the general fund, just so that we end up at zero at the end of the year. We don't want to be in a negative position because the state doesn't like that. And they write me a little letter, and then we have to say, okay, we'll take care of it. But just looking at the transfers, which would be the part that from a general fund perspective we'd be most concerned with, in order to accomplish a couple of these smaller projects and considering where revenues are at, then the transfers go up a bit. And so if we do a transfer or a budget amendment in the current year, we won't need quite as much in 2025 as I had proposed at the all-day budget meeting. That was sitting at around $825,000. But again, this is still kind of in motion. But to give you an idea of where it's at, that transfers a little higher. And every time we do a major project at the pool, or for that matter, any project at the pool, that transfer moves from about $600,000, which is what we're average. It just has to go up by whatever that project is. So that's where that is.
That was a question I was going to ask, or have you make clarification for our residents, and the fact that that pool does cost us to operate regardless.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And the average, it used to be right around 500, but now it's averaging 600.
Yeah, 6 to 7. And some of that's just pricing, right? We do a project, price of everything's gone up. I hate to use that as an excuse, but it really is just the truth. If we had Steve up here, our city engineer, he would tell us, 30% price increase on everything, pipe, dirt, anything that you do on a project. So it's just the way it is. Emergency medical fund. So this one, you'll notice when you review it a little closer that I put cash down here at the bottom instead of reserve. At my year end, I always have explained to you how that reserve is all over the place because of the way they handle the accounting standards handle retirement. And so I decided the best thing for you to understand is how much cash does this fund have. And so they're sitting in a very good cash position in the fund. They've had some rate increases. They've had some negotiations that have helped with Medicaid. So the amount that we get paid for our transports of Medicaid patients, and some grant funding and things that came in there. And so all in all, fund in a very healthy position, and we'll just keep moving forward with that. Secondary water fund. This is the fund, not our secondary system. This is just simply the contract that we have to maintain. It's Weber Basin, right? Weber Basin's secondary system. So they have a portion of the city, and they've contracted with our city workers to go out and maintain that for them. That's all that's handled inside of this fund. Our normal secondary water system is just part of the water fund and part of that operation. That's the enterprise funds. Any questions? And Alex, do I need to leave a little more time than this, or we keep going real quick? Okay. In the special revenue funds, to go through those quickly, victim services, part of the legal department, very important part. If they were here to say that, they would definitely talk about that. The grant funding seems to be going lower over time related to that. And so the general fund's subsidy of that program has to go up slightly. And it also increases just as the wages of the people that run it tend to go up a little bit more over time as well. But all in all, good functioning program. We do try and keep that reserve just around zero. And so it's not meant to have a big reserve. Alcohol enforcement fund, we have an officer dedicated to go out and do DUI stops, convenience store work, things like that, ID checks, and so forth. That transfer from the general fund to support that went up slightly, mostly because the person that we have running that is a higher paid person than the one we had in it before. It wasn't intentional. That's just who the chief assigned to it, and they happen to be paid a little bit more than the one that was there before.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
Is this something we are mandated to have by the state, or is it something that we've decided as a community is through the police department we do?
I don't know that we're mandated to have it. Would you know that, Alex? It's
My understanding is that we're not mandated to do it. If we choose to do it, then we have access to some funds that otherwise wouldn't flow to the city to help offset the costs of providing that kind of specific, it's not unique, unfortunately, very ununique, but specialized service, if you will, benefits the community.
I mean, we get a grant of $101,000 and we put in 37. We have an extra officer out there handling that type of activity. It seems like a pretty good deal for the city. The 911 fund, as you look at those numbers, you'll notice they changed significantly, bringing on Clearfield and North Davis Fire. Layton City now receives what used to be Clearfield's point of serve, whatever PSAP stands for, right? The PSAP funding that comes from the phone bills. And so that money is now reflected in here as our revenue. And then also the line called other, that's the charges for services, because now we're charging the other entities to provide that dispatch service for them. So then we were able to allocate more of the wages into the 911 fund. That the $1,345,000 represents about 53% of the wages of the whole operation. So the remainder of that is still covered by the general fund. So this is an operation that is subsidized by the general fund in order to provide that service. And that's at the current time is accounted for under the communications division of the police department. That fund carrying, a reserve. We don't generally try to keep too much reserve in this. We try to allocate as much cost as we can to the 911 fund that is legitimate cost, because there are restrictions on where the money can be spent, what it can be spent for. Metro Strike Force. So Layton City being the lead agency for the Davis Narcotics Strike Force. Most of that funding is grant and then assessments to cities. So if you don't provide an officer to the program, then you're assessed a certain amount that's calculated out there. And then there's personnel, overtime, and so forth that's covered by the grants. And it carries just a small balance depending on where those grants come out. Had that one in there twice or went backwards. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. The RDA, we spent a bunch of time talking about that tonight, and you can see some of these figures in here, 2.1 million. Actually, we didn't talk about that particular project, but you've got the young development over there, and there was some commitments there related to that development and bringing that into the mix. Then you can see the reserves down here as far as what's left after those commitments are made in the RDA side of it. On the EDA side of it, we did talk about some of those projects, payback agreements in the current year, and also then in 2025, I would be hopeful personally that the transaction could occur in 2024, but for 2025, selling the property that the city purchased to the EDA so that the city is then reimbursed for that transaction. But for now, that transaction is sitting in the 2025 budget. You can see the reserves in there. After the numbers we saw earlier tonight, I don't know if we'd call this reserve significant or not. But those are large numbers. But there is funding there so that we can help out with those projects, and that's good. Impact fee fund. So the impact fee fund, I guess if we go down to the very bottom on the reserve side of it, these funds get eaten up by streets projects, public safety, and parks projects. And so for 2025, you can see here in the middle, 1.3 million in streets projects, $500,000 public safety, which is towards the dispatch center over there, and then the debt service on the park bond, which I believe only has one more year after this. And so that will actually help contribute to the reserves in the impact fee fund. But I guess from your perspective, we're not, and from also the state's perspective and developers, we're not carrying large balances here. Developments happen, the impact fees come in, they're supposed to be used in those areas of development. We're not supposed to hold on to those. We can't hold on to them for more than 6 years, but you can see that, as we get those, we're putting them into the projects that qualify. So that puts us in a good position. Class C road funds. There was some significant things that happened in Class C road funds. In the current year, we have some carryover maintenance projects, and then also the projects that were programmed, maintenance projects that were programmed for 2024, which added up to the $4 million. Our reserves stayed about the same. Then we have potential property purchase that we talked about earlier in the all-day meeting that ends up taking some of this money that we had in reserve. So the reserve then comes down to $1.2 million. A few years ago, we generally didn't keep any money in reserve in this fund. We tried to program it all out to maintenance, and we've tried to do that as well, keep up with it. Because they changed the formula, we've ended up with a little bit more in here, and just trying to be careful programming that out. The philosophy of the city has always been better to have the cash in hand and then program the expenses if we can do that. The Prop 1 fund, the one thing in the 2025 budget, again, comes down to the potential property purchase. I believe it would be related to the Sugar Street realignment project that we talked about. So there is some potential there, and that's programmed into this budget. That kind of a one-time, one-off type project, not something we would normally do from year to year, does cause us to eat into a reserve and put us in a position where we don't have all the money up front before we spend it. But that's where we're at on Prop 1. And then the RAM fund, estimate that we'll bring in around $2 million on that. And right now the proposed projects out there are about $1.8 million. And so then that fund will continue to carry about a year's worth of funding in advance of when the projects happen. Capital Projects Fund, we went through this entire list in the all-day meeting of what those projects are that make up, the $12.9 million. We've got funding sources that range from Class C roads to the general fund, impact fees, and then also Davis County, Wasatch Front Regional Council throwing in money for some street projects there as well. And the debt service fund that's out there handling the Utopia reserve payment, the park bond payment, and forgot what that one was. Sorry, but I'll figure that out. Oh, and then we get some money in from UIA to help make the Utopia debt reserve payment. So that's what that is. Building Services Fund, you recall that a couple of years ago, the legislature passed a law where building permits and plan review and things can no longer be accounted for in the general fund. And so those end up in their own fund, and then we allocate costs to that fund based on revenues. That's it.
Wow. Okay. We have the one question yet to be answered. So, Steve, do you want to kind of come up and answer Councilmember Moore's question regarding the lighting? And then does anybody else have any other questions? We could.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. Street lighting projects that we're working on, obviously 89 was one. We also have quite a bit on Layton Parkway, 2700 West. But then we do have Aspen East is underway right now. And then the focus of this year's budget is to put, I believe it's $120,000 towards residential street lighting, as well as some lighting up around the Fairfield Road area that needs some street lights as well. But the focus going forward with the plan is to shift into the areas that are not UDOT projects anymore, if that makes sense. We're grateful for all the work they did in the city, but it's time to get back and move on to our own stuff as well. So does that answer your question?
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. That's quite a bit of information here tonight, and we're only on item number 4. We still have 2 more items regarding our regular work meeting. So you can see how easily it is that we run over a lot of times and why our regular council meeting runs behind. So with that, let's go ahead, and I think Weston's spooling up his information next. Mr. Apolloni, he's going to be talking about a rezone request for Smith's Food and Drug Center.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will be brief and be happy to answer any questions after I go through this really quick. Let me just grab the mouse. Before you tonight is a proposed rezone request from Smith's. Smith's has a large a large warehouse distribution center to the south of this property. So the rezone is identified in red. It is owned by Smith's and currently zoned agriculture. They are asking to rezone the property to M2, heavy manufacturing industrial, which is an allowed use within the general plan here and was planned for this to be industrial. The purpose of the rezone is to expand Smith's food and drugs operations and construct a new perishable grocery warehouse that will store produce and provide large provide large freezers of storage of frozen items as well. One of the benefits of the addition here is it reroutes traffic with the semis. If you're familiar with this road, there are times where semis are parked on the road. This brings in truck traffic onto the site, and it routes them. This mouse is kind of hard to control through here. It routes them up to the top of the property where there's semi parking up to the very northern portion of the property with about 103 semi parking stalls. Obviously, this is their site plan that they've provided. It hasn't gone through a site plan process, so there's going to be, I'm sure, some minor modifications, but they've done a lot of general work on this. We're excited about this coming forward. So on March 12th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously for a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve this rezone request from agriculture to M2 heavy manufacturing industrial. Staff supports the Planning Commission's recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
So Weston, do you want to go ahead and point out that the northern part is right next to the Hillfield Road, right?
This is Hillfield Road right here. Yep, that little stuff.
So people can get their barriers.
This is Hillfield, and then this is Sugar that runs along.
Can you show again where the trucks will enter and how that will reduce the traffic currently on Sugar, even though we have the new turnabout or exit?
Yeah, so they're going to be entering through here, and then they can queue up along this line. Sorry for that. It's kind of just, there we go. You can queue up along here, and then they can either distribute down along the backside of the property into their existing facility, or they can go up into the new portion that they're working on building and either go into the bays to access this building or go up into the parking lot for staging. And then they'll be exiting this section right here. It's a big image just because it's a large piece of property, but this section right here where my cursor is the exit only. So the entrance for the trucks will be here, and it'll be an entrance only, and then this will be an exit only.
And Weston, excuse me, there's no entrance and exit on to Hillfield.
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm sure they are, but do the irrigation companies have easements? Because that's all irrigated right now. And so somewhere they're drawn out of a ditch to do it. So are they protected in that respect? So,
yeah, that would have to be addressed through the site plan. I can't specifically speak to any easements that are on the property, but we'll definitely, if there are, we'll make sure that those are mitigated through the site plan approval process.
I'm just concerned we get water from A to B.
Sure.
So you don't stop it.
Yep. It will continue down Hillfield Road, I'm sure.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. So this will be an item that we'll be discussing or acting upon in our regular city council meeting, but it's good to have the update here and kind of understand any additional details that we might need. So thank you for that one, Weston. We'll go ahead and go on to item number 6, which is the general plan map amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant for the general plan map amendment is Robert Love. representing Double J Investments. He is requesting a general plan map amendment of approximately 5.2 acres and rezone of approximately 3 acres. And I want to clarify what the difference is there. So the general plan map amendment, this small section of gray, or the M1 area that you see that has not been constructed on, is not identified in our general plan on the map itself, but it is called out in the general plan text. And so we're clarifying that we're adjusting the map, the general plan map, to show that as industrial, as well as this request for their rezone and identifying this area for the general plan. The general plan states that limited portions of the land near Antelope Drive and Fort Lane and Fairfield Road and State Highway 193 are recognized as manufacturing and industrial areas and can be considered for industrial, which is why this is before you tonight. The rezoning of the property from A to M1 and amending the general plan map from agriculture to manufacturing is considered within the general plan, as it is near these intersections. In addition to the easements described above, the development agreement attached to the staff report will be accompanied, attached to your staff report is accompanied with the rezone request. This development agreement provides guidance for future development of the property. The agreement does prohibit uses related to gasoline cells and storage, recreational uses, and commercial and retail uses. The purpose of these are to exclusions are to ensure that the property does not develop in a retail commercial fashion and limits the population on this property. On March 12th, 2024, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the council approve the general plan map amendment from agriculture to manufacturing, the rezone request from agriculture to M1 light manufacturing, and the development agreement between Double J Investments LTD and Layton City. Staff does support the recommendations of the Planning Commission.
Okay. Any questions on this or need clarification?
Just one question. Wes, the development agreement you mentioned, is it similar to the one where the car wash was located? Similar?
It is similar. It's a little bit more restrictive. It adds retail and commercial uses, whereas the other one did, and the owner was okay with that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Wow, good wrap up. Thank you.
Yep.
And it is 7:01 when typically we'd start our regular council meeting, but do you want to go back to any reports or should we just forego those for this meeting? I think we kind of got caught up last time. Okay. All right. Then I'm going to take a quick stand here just for a minute. And while Kim's readjusting her recording so that we can then go into our regular scheduled council meeting. So if there's anybody out there that would like to come into the chambers and join us, we'd certainly welcome you at this time. They didn't hear us. Everyone out to our regularly scheduled Layton City Council meeting for April 4th. As customary, we always start our meetings out with a prayer and a pledge, and we take turns rotating each month. And tonight, I'm going to turn the time over to Councilmember Thomas to proceed. Your choice.
I move that we adjourn.
Yeah, no. Nice try.
Have a prayer, and then afterwards, if you'll stand. Doesn't look like we have to remove any hands, but anyway, we'll do the pledge. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered tonight in order to discuss things that affect Layton City. We pray that our minds may be clear. We pray that thou may fill ourselves with the Spirit, that we might be able to do the things which are right, do things which help those that need help. We pray for that guidance. Grateful for the opportunity, for it doesn't happen in too many lands. This is a great land where we have the ability to make choices, try to help each other now. And these things we pray and thank you for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you.
All rise. Yeah. Right on. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilmember Thomas, for that introduction and the beautiful prayer. We'll go ahead and get started then with our meeting. And council, we have, looks like 3 sets of minutes that need to be approved. If anybody has any questions or concerns or changes, please make that known. Otherwise, I'll take some action regarding our minutes.
Madam Mayor, I do have one correction that I failed to provide prior to the meeting on the minutes of the Layton City Council work meeting, February 1st, 2024. On page 2, the very last paragraph, second sentence, referencing the Communities That Care report, I do have one word correction in reference to the city's Park and Rec department. It's identified that they had a presentation, but the word really should be participation, because the Parks and Rec did not have a presentation at the Communities That Care event, but they did attend. So I was thanking them for their participation. And so that is the only change that I have.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right. And with that, I will move that we approve the minutes of Layton City Council work meeting January 18th, 2024, Layton City Council work meeting February 1st, 2024 with the correction, and the minutes of Layton City Council meeting March 7th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the minutes as written with the correction on our February 1st as noted. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I at this time want to acknowledge the fact, is Lara out there in the audience? Okay. Would you mind coming up, please? I'm going to have you come all the way up here with me. Hello. Okay, I want to acknowledge the fact that, as a governing body, we really believe in the future of our city. And we want to help those youth that are active and interested in city government to join us. And tonight we have Lara that's going to join us here on the dais. She's part of our Layton City Youth Council. And with that, I'd like you to kind of just tell everybody a little bit about you. And if you want to talk about the council, you're welcome to. Your youth council, that is. Go ahead.
My name is Lara Gutierrez. I'm on Layton City Youth Council. This is my first year. Oh, sorry, my bad. My name is Lara Gutierrez. It's my first year on Layton City Youth Council. We help out around our community, mostly in volunteer work. We recently went to a convention for other Layton City youth or for other youth councils across Utah State. That was very fun. Thank you.
There you have it. See, it's good to have them in training here, and it's always gives them a different perspective to be sitting up here on the dais with the fellow council members. Councilmember Thomas.
Anytime, this on? Oh, darn it. It is on now, though. Anytime you look out and you think, what's this world coming to with all these kids? They don't know what they're doing. Come sit in on one of these meetings. I've been on it, their council for a year, and I came in with the attitude of, excuse my English, bunch of lazy bums out there. They're far from it. These are the cream of the crop. They're great. They do work. They think about things that I hate saying when I was their age, it never even crossed my mind. And so I applaud them. They do a great job, and to have them actually come here and be part of it, it's a privilege. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being up here with us. Okay, Council, I'll go ahead and go on with our agenda items. Now's the time when we give our municipal announcements, and I know that we generally have announcements for our Parks Department, as well as other general information. So, Councilmember Roberts.
Not a lot, just warmer weather is on the way, I promise, after this weekend maybe. I think the snow's coming back, but skate park's open, restrooms in the parks are open. We have a pavilion almost finished that'll be a great asset to our parks. So looking forward to a lot of activities this summer. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else have any municipal announcements? I mean, earlier tonight we were able to hear about the season for the Davis Arts Council. So those that did not, who's continued with us, obviously you was able to hear that earlier, which was great. They have a good season coming up. And I believe secondary water, the lines are going to get charged here pretty quick on the 15th as usual. So that's news, or, hopefully everyone will have their valves closed by then and make sure we don't have any leakage going on. So I don't really have any other announcements either than I will tell you at this time, rather than wait till the end, this will be our only council meeting this month. Typically we have 2 a month, but the timing for the next council meeting, all of us will be in attendance to the League of City and Towns Conference. And this is a very valuable conference for us because that's where we really kind of get to collaborate with other cities and really put forth good agendas and understand what needs to take place representing the cities, in particular on the legislation that takes place up on the Hill. So with that, I just wanted everyone to know that tonight. Okay, we'll go ahead and go on then to our verbal petitions and presentations. And tonight we have a very honored guest here with us. And, well, actually, I was going to say, I just realized I looked up. Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to our city manager, and he's going to explain.
Yeah, we've had a change in circumstances. So on the agenda, we had previously had scheduled to recognize one of our outstanding police officers, Officer Sean Horton. He's been a lieutenant in the police department and served the city for 30 years, and he's just an exceptional individual and did an exceptional job for the city. So you may have noticed Chief Swanson came up and whispered in my ear and said that his wife has unexpectedly become quite ill, and they have asked if they could defer that and come at the first meeting in May. And of course, we said yes. So that's the reason.
Absolutely.
We won't go forward with that, and would like to have him come back with his wife and family at another time to recognize him. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
My apologies. I was waiting for him to come in, and then I just got sidetracked here. But yeah, that's good. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go on then to our citizens comment portion of our meeting. This is the portion where you're welcome to come up and address the council. If you do have comments regarding the 2 public hearing items, then you can wait and express those concerns when we open up the public hearing. But if there's anything else that you'd like to address, please do so. You can come up to the podium here, state your name and address, and give us your concerns.
Mike Clendrianis, 2601 West Gentile. First, I want to say congratulations, Zach, Clint, and Dave. I haven't seen you since the campaign, so congratulations. Thank you, Mayor, Council, giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to speak about consent item B, 2700 West Layton Parkway. I'm here representing myself, my sister, and my uncle. As one of the property owners on 2700, or near 2700 Layton Parkway project, my sister and I received a letter March 11, 2024, regarding Layton City Municipal Code 12.24.060. I actually have copies for you, council members, if you want them. I apologize, Tyson. I thought you were still at the pool in Vegas. So, I don't have enough for all of you. But if you can pass those around, thank you. The code, in simple terms, states the city is entitled to recoup cost the city paid for design and construction improvements that benefit the development activities of the property. The city will withhold permits and approve future developments until these costs are paid. I'd like to offer a thank you to Steve Jackson, city engineer. He answered any the questions I had very quickly, responding to all my questions in the letter. It was very professional timing notice for the upcoming council meeting today. First, I request the council table this consent item for a minimum of 90 days. The first contact we had from the city official regarding 2700 West and our property was 1,627 days ago. This request for 90 days, I believe there's acceptable minimum amount of time for all the affected parties to continue to gather information as needed. I would also request, in the spirit of transparency, that the city inform future parties in which the city code or other relevant codes could apply, be made aware of the codes during the negotiations. I'd also like to provide a breakdown and calculations that Steve, the city engineer, provided in an email. Thank you again. You guys thought I had a real long speech, huh? So, as you can see, once you receive these portions, calculation reference the cost of the right-of-way. And this is not a design and construction cost as referenced in the city code being considered today. I request it be removed from the calculations and the total be reduced accordingly. Finally, it is noted in the calculation the portion of the recoup cost is a deduction due to the grant the city received from the county. From my understanding, the grant covered nearly, if not all, the design and construction costs incurred on this project. To verify, I've spoken to the county officials. I'm waiting for a copy of the grant contract between the city and the county. The official also stated that if the city proceeds with a payback agreement, the county could or would expect a refund to be returned to them. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, I'm gladly try to answer them. As I stated, I need additional more time so I may not be able to answer any of your questions today that you're asking. So,
thank you. Okay. Does anyone else have any thing they'd like to bring before this body other than the public hearing? Okay, seeing that there's none, we'll go ahead and proceed then with our consent items. We do have 3 items on the agenda tonight. We have, and just so you know, I mean, all 3 of these items we can hear the presentation on all of them and then act as in one single motion as far as our acceptance or denial on them. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to our city attorney, Mr. Darren Curtis. Yes, Tyson?
I'd like to make a motion to remove B, item B, and handle it separately if that's in order right now.
It is. Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor to remove item B, please say aye. Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll do that. So that then brings us back to 2 items for our consent items. But again, we'll start out with item number A, which our city attorney, Mr. Darren Curtis, will take care of us.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. According to our code 401, 403, and according to state code, it allows us to create a board of appeals for records requests. Now, the first appeal would go to the city manager, and then it would go to this board. So we've had this board. It's not often used, but we have had it. I think the last one was in 2017. So we want to appoint another person to the board, and according to our code, that person has to be a professional experience at requesting and managing records. And I can vouch for this person. This person is a good person, and he's professional, and he's very familiar with the grammar requests. So that person is Gary Crane. So,
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions on that, Council?
Maybe, Darren, I know there's been some changes to the grandma laws. Have we seen more requests? I know the Chief Swanson mentioned that now that the cameras are on, that we get more grandma requests. So do you anticipate this being needed more than it has in the past?
I do not. I think we've had dash cam. We now have body cam. We are getting a lot of requests, but the appeals board, I do not think
they won't get to that point.
Yes, there's grandma. Obviously the city appreciates the transparency of grandma, and we support that. But there are certain records that need to be denied because of grandma, because of the privacy of those records. And I think this assists us and helps us in that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and go on to item number C, which is a bid award. And Steve Jackson will give us the details on this one.
Mayor, Council, it's good to be with you tonight. Before you for consideration is a bid award for the Hillsborough Drive Waterline Improvements Project. Essentially, Hillsborough Drive between Emerald Drive and Cherry Lane is the area of the water line that needs to be replaced in there. 8-inch water line, approximately 1,280 feet is what we'll be replacing in there with the project. Orman Construction submitted the bid. There were 4 bids received. Orman Construction submitted the lowest responsive bid in the amount of $348,868.39. Our engineer's estimate was $330,000. And staff would recommend that the council adopt Resolution 24-15 awarding the bid to Orman Construction and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement for the Hillsborough Drive Waterline Improvements Project. Are there any questions that I can ask or answer? I don't need to ask any, but are there any that I can answer for you?
Any questions here?
I guess I can't add, this is in anticipation of us repaving that road as well. So it'll be part of that together is we'll get the water line fixed and then get the road repaired and resurfaced. So.
Which is why a lot of some of the other roads don't get totally repaired yet or resurfaced yet, because we want to make sure we take care of the infrastructure. So very good. Okay, thank you. If there's no questions.
I just have one question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you explain the acronyms listed there, please?
Oh, the sheet. Those are the sheet 2, 3, and 4. Those are the drawing sheets. I won't show you the actual design plans. They're pretty boring for most people, but yeah, those are just, this is the vicinity map that we put on our plans. Thanks.
Okay. I would. I generally like to take pictures and post and talk about things. I don't want to change your acronyms, but I would love for that to actually say sheet next time, if possible.
Might apply to the sewer.
It might.
Yeah, it's water lines.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Okay, council, I'll go ahead and then bring these two items back to you for action regarding our consent items. So if you could just,
Madam Mayor, excuse me.
Go ahead if you got it.
I move that we approve a resolution 24-12 and resolution 24-15.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve the two consent items as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. We'll now come back to item number B, council, so we can deal with this item separately.
All right, let me scroll back up here a little ways. So before you tonight is Resolution 24-14, which is the new development required to pay for project improvements installed by the city, Layton Parkway 2700 West construction. As mentioned previously in the citizen comments, the city has installed or constructed Layton Parkway from 2200 West to 2700 West. The city purchased full 84-foot right-of-way and constructed a half-width roadway and the utilities associated with this project. On 2700 West, we purchased the full 105-foot wide right-of-way and constructed the full width of improvements. This image is tilted, so north is to the left, just so you're aware. It doesn't fit on the screen vertically very well. So, and then as mentioned before, we did receive $3 million in COG funding for this portion of the improvements. Overall, we received $6 million for the entire section of 2700 West from West Davis Corridor up to Hillfield Road. So we are in construction of that second phase as well. As was mentioned, City Code 122460 says the city shall be entitled to collect from new development prior to the issuance of permits any costs for the improvements which the city has paid for and constructed that would constitute a project improvement to the development activity. Darren could help me on this, but a project improvement is actually kind of a defined term in the way we speak about things. A project improvement is something that is any improvement specifically that benefits the development activity on that property. We do have system improvements that are general regional type improvements. So the fact that this road is 105 feet wide versus a 60-foot wide road, that's a system improvement, that oversizing, if that makes sense. And the water lines and the sewer lines, anything that's oversized above what a normal development would require would be a system improvement versus a project improvement. So the project improvements that are on this payback agreement or this payback that we're proposing tonight include essentially the half section of a 60-foot cross section. That would be 30 feet of property, 18 feet of asphalt that's 3 inches thick, 8 inches of road base underneath that roadway, standard curb and gutter on that one side, 5-foot sidewalk, and then standard SLO4 street lights. As far as the utilities go, 8-inch culinary water, secondary water, and sanitary sewer, all 8-inch, and then a 15-inch storm drain. And just for reference, we put two 36-inch storm drains down 2700 West, not the 15-inch that is included in this payback. So just as a frame of reference, the water lines are over 8 inches as well. Those are the project improvements that are included in the costs. What we ended up doing is taking an analysis of each one of the utilities, each one of the street areas and the property, and we calculated what the actual costs were for those, and then we did an analysis of the benefited properties that would be benefited by this in the future, and then took the total cost, divided it by the benefited acreage, and came up with the cost per each property that was benefited by each specific area, utilities, streets, right of way. So as we went through the list there, this is the amount of the payback that breaks down there. It's roughly $2 million on Layton Parkway, $1.2 million on 2700 West. The COG funding, as was mentioned in the citizen comment, was a credit based on the funding that we received as we talked with the attorney's office and coming up with this credit. It was based on the proportionality of what was going to be required by a developer versus the city's funds. And so that's why that credit is in there. It is only credited towards the 2700 West part of the project because that is the area that the funding was received on. Maybe to speak a little bit to the comment about the payback, we do have some payback agreements on contracts with the Davis County COG. This, however, was not one of them that requires us to provide any kind of payback to the COG if we collect anything back for development. If we were going to pay anything back to the COG, this funding would probably need to increase in order to collect that money and pay it back to Davis County. So tried to be as judicious and fair as possible across the entire project area to make sure that we were ensuring that everybody was paying their proportional share, but not being overtaxed or over, the word not taxed, but overburdened with somebody else's benefit or not. So again, the combined project total for the payback is $3.2 million. The costs for the total project are closer to $9 million. Just to kind of give you that breakdown. And then this is the payback amounts that are broken out by each property that we're recommending be placed onto each one of these as they develop. And let me be really clear, if they don't develop, they don't pay these fees. If they don't connect to those particular, services, they don't pay the fees. So it's not something that we're going to assess on them at any time in the future. It would only be if a development came in and wanted to be able to utilize this infrastructure that's been installed and paid for. So with that, staff would recommend that we adopt resolution or that you adopt resolution 24-14, requiring the project improvement costs attributed to the new development be paid and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents. They would be recorded against these properties going forward. So are there any questions I can help answer?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Steve, for that explanation. The dollar figure, the 3.22 million, that's static. That doesn't change. So, like, if it takes time for the development to come in, it's this cost.
Yeah, they're basically paying today's costs. Or what the actual costs were for the construction itself. We didn't include any of the design costs or any of the time the staff has spent to actually administer the contract or anything. It was all just straight construction fees that we paid to the contractor. Okay. And it stays this number going forward, so it wouldn't escalate or anything with interest or.
I have a question. Curb, gutter, sidewalk. Is it proposed to have sidewalk on both sides of the street? Or just
there is a 10-foot sidewalk on one side and then a 5-foot sidewalk on the other. We're only collecting 5-foot sidewalk, and there is curb on both sides. So as a development, you wouldn't pay for both sides unless you happen to own property on both sides of it.
Yeah. Let's get driving that. Okay, council.
I do have a follow-up question. So you said if there is no development, then this wouldn't be expected to be paid back. If there is development, is there a time frame or timeline in which this would be expected to be paid?
Yeah, they would basically pay it before they receive their permits to advance the development. So it would go through the review process and the approval process, and then before they were issued a permit to go to work, they would have to pay these upfront fees.
And then to speak to Mr. Calandrianos' question earlier about knowing about these types of expectations prior to when negotiations were being made in the beginning, can you explain the common practice or process behind that, and if that is something that is generally expected or known up front, or if that's something that always comes after the fact?
To my knowledge, when our attorneys go out to speak to property owners, this is part of the discussions. I don't know. I can't speak for the discussions that were had with Mr. Calandrianos, but typically that is the discussions that are had, is that when the city purchases the property that and improves any kind of development infrastructure, that then there are paybacks placed on the development for the developers to pay into the future. It's known that when you put in these improvements, that they end up raising the property values and ending up making them more desirable for property development. That's not necessarily something I can speak to, though, because I wasn't in those meetings, but it is common practice for the attorneys to discuss, the fees and the process and all of that thing going forward.
To that point, a similar question maybe for Darren. I mean, in the resolution itself, it mentions the settlement agreements and release of all claims with differing dates depending on each property owner. My assumption would be that payback arrangements were itemized in those settlement agreements. Is that right, Darren?
I would have to kick to staff.
I don't think they're itemized there because we.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean itemized, but they're the concept of a payback agreement that you're getting X for this purchase, and that this is going. There are certain things in the future that are going to be happening. One of which being a payback arrangement we're putting in these improvements, and that you're going to be anticipated if development happens that you will have to pay those back.
Yeah, I would have to go back and review each one to see what's in there, but I can't answer that specifically.
Okay. And then I mean, to the question about timeliness, they're really, again, these aren't like a bill that's due. That you got to provide this by X amount of days. It's if development transpires. And I'm assuming that if there are questions about the dollar figures or the right of way, that those are really questions to be adjudicated in a court. If they had a disagreement with what the city was saying a payback arrangement was, it's not necessarily up to the legislative body to make that decision.
Yeah, I would assume if they really had that level of issue with it, they could do that. I'm not aware, Alex, if we ever gone to that level of place with it. I just know that in the past when we've done these agreements or these paybacks, that it's been based on development, and most of the developers have acknowledged the fact that they've received or purchased a property that's improved, and they don't have to come in and spend these costs and put in all these improvements, and they can go to work. So
I would just add that this is a little bit from memory, but probably for the last 25 years, the city has consistently, anytime we build an oversized project, we have undertaken this approach. There's nothing novel, new, uncertain about this. The city has been completely consistent over the years. Sometimes the methodology will change based on the specific, unique nature of the project. That effort is in an effort to be fair, to look at the whole situation. But I recall, I couldn't give you the dates, but I could go back and find them, dates in our earlier discussions about the construction of 2700 West and the acquisition of property as part of the discussions about litigation, other kinds of things. This very issue has come up consistently, is that there will be payback agreements along this regional transportation corridor. So there's nothing unique about this. They typically aren't. This typically hasn't been in the form of a negotiation. It's a mathematical calculation based on what the costs are. And as Steve said, I'd just like to reemphasize, we specifically talked about, Steve and I in Public Works, is that when they went to work to put this together, is any of the money that came from the county is not to be used as part of that, right? That's would be inappropriate to do that. We don't function that way. So for us, we feel like it's been very straightforward, and it's been a very fair calculation. There are other approaches that were looked at that are much less beneficial than what is being proposed. But the other thing I'd say, and I think it's probably clear, is the reason for this is to create equity and fairness on the part of property owners. So typically, if a private owner, and most of the time developers pay these, not owners. When a developer comes in and buys the ground from the homeowner, then the developer has to pay these costs, right? Not the homeowner typically, but in a few cases, the actual owners of the property are doing the development. So it's different. But typically, if a property owner comes in ahead of infrastructure, then they're required to put in all this very same infrastructure. And so the purpose of this, for everybody that uses this, to bring equity. So if an owner decides not to sell their property until after the public, the citizens, taxpayers, have paid for a significant improvement, in this case, this road, then should the abutting property owners who, if they would have come first, would have had to pay their fair share. Is it free that they get a free ride at the expense of the taxpayer dollars, right? And don't have to pay any costs that they otherwise would. So it's really a fairness perspective to try to treat, at the end of the day, to treat every property owner along a public improvement the same way, whether they're before the city's process or they're after the city's process. Otherwise, you would have, it may affect the timing development, but otherwise you would have public dollars that are spending building project improvement infrastructure, as Steve said, that specifically benefit or are essential. There's no other option for their property. I don't know if that makes sense the way I've explained that. So there's a principle behind this. It isn't just an effort to recoup money and to put development costs along public infrastructure, make them consistent all across the board, so that it doesn't create winners and losers.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I agree. I mean, I don't disagree with the ordinance at all. My question is so when we get our property tax bill that comes in November, there's hey, if you don't agree, call this number, call the whomever, and there's a contest period, I guess. In this instance, there isn't a contest period where you can say, hey, where do you get these numbers? Let's talk about it. The ordinance is black and white, that Steve says it and the council says yes, and so there you go. If someone has a question, what's the process?
Well, so in the letter that was sent out, we did say, hey, if you have questions, please contact our office. And Mr. Quandrianos did it. One other property owner did a call as well. And so, we offered to meet with them and talk if they wanted to as well. But we felt like we answered the questions that were presented in the emails. And, we're happy to talk with them and tell them how we came up with the calculations. But like Alex mentioned, it really is, here's the dollar amount and here's the benefited property acreage, and you divide them out and you come up with a number, and then you calculate how many acres people own and do that. So we're happy to talk to people, but at the end of the day, it's not really a negotiation where we're going to come to some kind of a, overall, I don't know that there's a fatal flaw in this calculation that we could come to and say, oh yeah, we missed this or that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. My other question is, what's special about this timing of today? Is there some sort of
the project? The project is complete.
Okay.
It has been complete for a couple months, and to Alex's comments, we've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that this was very well thought through and equitable, and trying to make sure we were doing it the right way. But at the same time, if developers come in and this isn't recorded against property, then it becomes difficult for us, because then they can say, well, we didn't know about this payback, and then it makes it harder for us to try and collect. So that's why we're trying to put it in place now that the project's done. We want to make sure that if tomorrow somebody came in and said, hey, we want to develop property X, we could recoup these costs, is the best way I can put it.
So I have a quick question. Yeah. Typically, and I guess this comes back to the timing of it, is on all of our projects, we put together a projected cost analysis and knowing what that number is. So I'm sure early on you did the residents get kind of a ballpark figure? Because I understand that at this point now we know what the true costs are, and that's what you're basing it on, is exactly what the true costs are. So
yeah,
were they aware of that going?
No, that's not standard practice for us to go and make those estimates, because again, the bids that we have are for 36-inch pipe versus 15-inch pipe. And so we wanted to make sure that we weren't actually overcharging or telling somebody some number that's just going to cause any more angst and heartache than what, is necessary. And so we usually do wait until the end and say, hey, this is the numbers that we have. And again, we've tried to minimize it. I'm not saying it's cheap. It's a lot of money. But at the same time, it's, there were other costs that we didn't factor into this that we felt were justified. We just didn't want to collect engineering fees and other things that the city has paid out directly that are part of the, the project costs.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thanks, Steve. And I don't, as Council Member Morris said, I don't disagree with the, the policy of a payback agreement. I'm somewhat familiar with them in the past, but this is a big project. And we just saw this week in our packet, so it's really new to me. Would it be detrimental to have a work meeting discussion in our next council meeting, push it back to that? I'd like to see a comparison of how it was handled on, say, Layton Parkway on the east side, previous developments, and how that those discussions happened, those paybacks, the timing of all the agreements. Would there be detrimental effects to the city if we were to have postpone it to our next meeting?
The only thing I could see is that if somebody went out and decided to enter into a development contract between now and then we would have to consult legal counsel on whether or not we could still enforce this payback. To answer your question about the other parts of Layton Parkway, there is a section I believe the city built between Flint Street and Angel Street that may have some comparison there, but the other parts of Layton Parkway were actually built with developers paying for that portion and us paying them back for that work that was done. So very similar process, just kind of in reverse for the oversizing that they put in for us. Alex?
Tyson, from my perspective, I don't think there would be an issue. I think if there's a desire to have the council consider it further, I think the next meeting, which would be the first meeting in May, would be sufficient. I don't think that it justifies 3-month delay, but certainly to the next meeting. And again, given the information the mayor shared earlier about the second meeting in April, I think that would be fine. It would be our hope was, as you know, we talked about, we have a heavy agenda tonight. Another way, typically we would share that and have this discussion in the work meeting, but time didn't allow it, so that's certainly fine.
Okay. Any other questions, council?
I would also support Tyson's request, and in addition to that, would request from legal that there be some history done, or not history, but go back and kind of look at some of those not negotiations, but those discussions that were held when negotiations were made, just so that we could put a pin in what the conversations were. I don't doubt that those conversations were had, but it would be nice to have that on record when we talk about this further.
We will do, council. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just say one more thing?
Well, typically we don't do that. The fact that we're going to, well, it's a little premature, but I would have to say that based upon the comments here, I think there'll be additional time for you to kind of submit and we can answer your questions or get the answers, your question answered. So, but council, I'll refer to you on this.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we hold item B in our consent items to date certain. Is it May 2nd? May 2nd in our next regular or work and or regular council meeting.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved in second that we postpone the decision on item B of the consent items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did you get that, Kim? Okay, thank you. All right. We'll now move on to item number 6, which is our public hearing portion of our meeting. But before we open it up, we'll go ahead and hear from Weston regarding item A, the rezone request for Smiths.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I will try to go a little bit slower this time. We're in a little bit of a rush in the work session, but thank you for your time. Before you tonight is a rezone request from Smiths, or the Kroger company, proposed to rezone 26.41 acres of vacant land that is located in central Layton. The property is located north of the existing Smith's Food and Drug warehousing and distribution operations. The street with the street frontages of Sugar Street and Hillfield Road. The property is currently zoned agriculture, and the request is to zone it to M2, which is heavy manufacturing industrial. The applicant is requesting the rezone to expand the Smith's Food and Drugs operations by constructing a new perishable grocery warehouse that will store produce and provide large freezer and storage of frozen foods. Additional parking areas. Get you to your site plan here. Additional parking areas for the semi trucks and trailers will be located to the northern section of the property, and the circulation will be improved with vehicles having an entrance to the facility and being able to split off to the new and the old sections of the development, access to the loading docks of the new building, and then parking up above. That equates to 103 semi-parking stalls. Some of those are counted as double parking stalls, so I'm counting those as 103 trailer stalls. And the exit, so this would be the entrance that would go into the facility for the semis, and then an exit only would come out through here. And again, that's Sugar Street, so there would be no entrance or exit off of Hillfield Road. On March 12th, 2024, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council to approve this rezone request from A, agriculture to M2, heavy manufacturing industrial, and staff does support this recommendation. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, Council, any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. How much more traffic is on Sugar Street do you think we're going to have?
That's a good question for the applicant. Because we're at the rezone stage, they were generous enough to provide us a site plan, but we don't have a really good assessment of that.
I guess my thought is great that they're offering, or they're talking about parking up on top. That would be helpful. I'm just wondering the with that parking, with that distribution center, more traffic, but looks like they're nice enough to give us this. They're working on at least mitigating that.
That's correct.
Which has been problematic in the past, but okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I need to disclose, as it states in my conflict of interest page on file, that I'm employed by Smith's Food and Drug, but in discussions with legal, I stand no place to gain or lose by any decisions made tonight. So I won't be recusing myself. But I drive a big truck, as well. And I've looked really closely at this plan. Another thing I want to point out is pedestrian safety and employees. Bringing a lot of jobs means a lot more foot traffic, but the way they've designed it, there's a truck entrance and a truck exit. Getting the trucks off the road is another benefit, quicker, but also there's an increase of the autos don't enter in the same place as the trucks. There's several new auto entries, and they've really reduced the opportunities where trucks and autos are on the same part of the property. I've been in a lot of distribution centers over the years, and I think it'd be a great improvement for pedestrian safety. And I don't know if pedestrian is the right phrase, but foot
primarily
traffic
the workers as well.
by employees. Yeah, so I think it's a lot of improvement. Also, this has been in the making for a long time. I think one of our previous mayors 30 or so years ago owned this property before Smith's, and knew it was imminent. We've had a few big items on this agenda today, and then our RDA meeting previously, and I think this is a good addition that it would be to our city as well.
Very well stated. I mean, I'm excited. I do have to say, I've had the opportunity to sit down with the folks there and talk about the mitigation regarding the truck traffic, and I can see that they actually listened to some of the ideas that we presented, and I'm very pleased with the situation that you've come up with, and I think this will be a big help in that area, and most importantly, just the fact that this is a I think it's our number one employer in the city, not counting the Hillfield, but within the city as well. So the fact that they're really, taking to heart all of these changes. And personally, I've seen this property develop from back when it was just the single warehouse. So, and at that time I was an employee as well. So it's kind of exciting to see this. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah. Do we have an idea once the rezone is complete, the timeline? And the reason I ask is that we all do have a concurrent project just to the south of this with, the Sugar Angel realignment. So do we have a time frame, and if that has any issue or any, negative effect on the rezone?
I don't have an exact timeline. The a representative from for the applicant is here, Mr. Brett Bateman. So if you would like to ask that question, he might have that information.
Sure, why not?
Any other questions before we open our public hearing? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and open the public hearing. Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our public hearing is now open regarding item number A, a rezone request for Smith's Food and Drug Centers. If anyone wish to address this governing body, please do so. Step up to the mic and state your name and address. And let us know your thoughts. Okay. Seeing that there's no comments regarding item number A, I think we'll go ahead and move on to item number B. Darren, do you want me to deal with these separately? Oh, okay, never mind. I do have a public comment coming, but while he's coming up, should we go ahead and vote on item A?
Yes, we do
Okay.
item A and go on to the next one. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm not so much the public comment as I am the applicant.
Sweet.
So that's why I waited to see if anyone else would come up. My name is Brent Bateman. I'm an attorney with the Denton's Law Firm, and I am local counsel for the Kroger Company and for Smith's Food and Drug Centers. And all I want to do really quickly is to thank you for hearing this issue today. Thank you for considering this rezone, to express the commitment of Smith's to Layton City and to making this a project that works, and to working, moving forward on this site plan to make it a positive project. And also to, if you had any question whether or not Smith's was serious about this, I do have, and you should feel free to answer their questions. I do have Brian Handy from Louisville, who's come out for this meeting from the Kroger Company. And so I'm just going to turn it over to him. We also have Josh Codwell here from the design team. And so you should feel free to rain your questions down on him.
Okay. That's a good setup for you.
So again, my name is Brian Handy. I'm on the construction development side for the Kroger Company, and I appreciate what you said. You nailed it. It started out as a safety project, and it's turned into this. So the primary goal is safety on the whole thing.
Okay.
So anybody has any questions?
You have any questions for him?
I do have a question. I know that this is the rezone, so you may or may not have to answer this just yet, but is there anticipation of more jobs because of this addition, or is it just to house operations that are currently there?
It will increase. I can't tell you how much yet. It's early, but there will be an increase. We're bringing stuff back to the site from other locations. Currently, we don't have enough storage, so we actually ship off-site. So there'll be slight traffic. I know that was a question, but it shouldn't be huge.
Okay. That's a good answer. Good answer to the Freeport. Okay.
Anything else?
Sir?
Can I ask him a question?
It's a public. Well, I don't know. I guess. Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I mean,
Sure. Go for it. He's very familiar with this property and this hill.
Sure. There's a strip of property between the existing plant and the new that's owned by a railroad company.
You are correct.
Okay. I'll let you go.
We're in negotiations with the railroad company right now. We have an easement on that property already.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions on this? If not, I will make a personal comment. Another one, and this goes out to Smiths themselves. I mean, like I said, I appreciate them being such a great employer here within the city, And they've been a good partner with us as well, with Layton City. And I have to commend them because year after year, you've been very good about supplying us with popsicles for our parade, which has been a huge hit and has continued to increase. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I know that this is a new frozen section as well, even though they're produced on the other side of the property. But this is great.
No, appreciate that. Really did. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't realize that everything you do is precipitated on popsicles.
Well, so we have a site in Florida, and when we moved back into Florida, the mayor of the city we went to loved root beer, our Kroger root beer. And so we had to ship cases of that down there. She was very happy. We weren't going to carry it because it's a fulfillment center. And so we changed our whole policy because we take the feedback serious from everybody. So it wasn't just her. There were a lot of other requests. So it's not unusual.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, we do. So thank you very much. Okay, any other comments or regarding item A, this rezone request? Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for action on item number A.
I move that we approve ordinance 24-07, a rezone request for Smith's Food and Drug.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we approve item A. I'll do a roll call vote on this. Start down here with Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith Edmondson.
Aye.
Councilman Morris.
Aye.
Councilman Bloxham.
Yes.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for flying out here for this event as well. You know, we can't, like I said, we can't look for a better partner. So again, thanks. Okay, Weston, you're back up.
Thank you again. Okay, this application before you tonight is a general plan map amendment request from Double J Investments Ltd, a general plan, a map amendment from agriculture to light industrial manufacturing, a rezone from agriculture to manufacturing. The property is located on the northeast corner of Fort Lane and Antelope Drive. The request for the general plan map amendment is approximately 5.2 acres, and the rezone is approximately 3 acres. Just to clarify, the general plan currently just shows this piece here that is already developed as in the industrial, and the text of the general plan does allow for small areas, and I'll read a section of the general plan, but it does allow for small areas within this intersection to be considered for industrial. And so the request is to coincide the text of the general plan with the map of the general plan to show this undeveloped area and also to rezone and show this area within the industrial zone. The general plan states limited portions of the land near Antelope Drive and Fort Lane and Fairfield Road and State Highway 193 are recognized as manufacturing industrial areas for consideration. Rezoning the properties from A to M1 and amending the general plan map from agriculture to manufacturing is consistent with the general plan text and is near the intersection of Antelope Drive and Fort Lane. In addition to the easements that exist on the property, a development agreement has been attached and included in your staff report. This will be accompanied with the rezone request and will provide guidance on future development of the property. The agreement prohibits uses related to gasoline sales, storage, recreation, and any commercial or retail uses. The purpose of these exclusions are to ensure the property does not develop a retail commercial presence at the intersection or potentially increase the number of persons working or visiting the area beyond what's allowed by the CUP limitations. As the property is near this intersection of Antelope Drive and Fort Lane, identified in the general plan for rezone consideration, and as the development agreement and existing easements will guide future development of the property, staff supports the request for the rezone at this location. In addition, staff supports the amendment to the general plan map to match the text of and intent of the general plan. On March 12th, 2024, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend the council approve the general plan map amendment from agriculture to manufacturing, the rezone request from A to M1, and the development agreement between Double J Investments and LTD and Layton City. Staff supports the recommendation of the Planning Commission. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission or the council has.
Any questions?
Question, why didn't the map and the text align originally?
As we go through general plans, sometimes there's inherent errors. There's a lot that we look at. And so that's all that this was just an inherent not identifying the full piece of property.
Okay.
Anyone else before we invite the public? Okay. I'll now turn the time over then for those in the audience who wish to address the council at this time regarding this general plan map amendment. And once again, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Emily Love Jasperson, and I'm at 93 East, 1720 North, Heber City, Utah, 84032. Double J Investments is the name for our family organization that covers the land in Layton City. The family owns 90 acres of land in that area, and we are asking for this rezone for only 3 acres. I wanted to express appreciation to the City Council and members of the city staff for their participation in what we have been working on in this past year to take care of this land and make plans for the future. I've had conversations with Tyson Roberts about what we can use the land for. Clint Morris has called me to understand more about what's going on, and we've been in many meetings with Chad Wilkinson, who has been in meetings with Hill Air Force Base staff and with other members of the state government so that we can understand what we can do to develop this property or not develop it in the best way for the city of Layton. And so one thing that we need to point out is the federal easements do allow for industrial uses for that piece of land. So there will be no change for the federal easements. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I'm very happy to see Lyra here today as an honorary member of the City Council, because when I was in high school, I was also a member of the Layton City Youth Council. And I think you're on a path to understand the ways that you can affect government and be involved in your community. So I'm just thrilled to see you here today.
That's good. Thank you.
Abe Carlsruhe, 144 East Antelope Drive. Am I allowed to ask questions in this forum or no?
If we want to answer.
It's just one question.
You can ask.
Okay. I'm just curious, is the general plan map voted on by council? It is. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that Zach brought up the point about, well, first let me back up. I'm for the rezone of this property, but I do want to point out some inconsistencies in the planning and development of this. And you guys probably know why my motives are where they are, but the general plan is extremely vague when it says the rezoning or it's acceptable to have an M1 zone near Antelope and Fort Lane. And it's extremely vague. And because it's vague, anybody that would see that would say, okay, let's go to the map and look at what that shows. And they would see clearly that it's not. In my opinion, we're not matching the text of the general plan, because who's to say that near Fort Lane or Antelope doesn't go a half mile north or a half mile east? So I think as citizens of this community, that's what we're looking for. And I just think that maybe there can be some more specificity of what exactly we're looking for when we're talking about general plan and making amendments to a map to match something that's vague. I do want to point out a couple things. It's been mentioned a couple times that I like to call, well, us and our family like to call this the Love Family Magic intersection, because the Loves get a lot of stuff here that is rezoned. And it's been mentioned a few times in hearings that this is on the corner, and I just want to be on record saying this is not on the corner of this property. In the council meeting agenda item sheet cover in the background, it says the proposed rezone area encompasses the northeast corner of Antelope Drive and Fort Lane intersection. I would dare say that encompasses an M1 property on the corner, but not necessarily the corner of Antelope and Fairfield. The reason, also in that same paragraph, it says properties to the north, east, and south are in the A zone, which is technically accurate, but in full transparency, that there are 3 properties to the south that are also residential, 1 property to the east that is also residential. And the reason I want to bring this up is because in this specific block of land, there are multiple parcels of land that are by M1 and that are by residential. And hypothetically, if someone were to come in and propose a rezone word for word with what J&J Investments is doing, I think you'd be hard pressed to make a point that's okay. I talked to Trevor Stambleck a couple months ago about, the process of determining how the city determines what goes into a general plan. And he says, we take it very seriously. We bring public in, we have lots of meetings to decide what's going to be on the general plan. And because of that, it's really hard to change a general plan. But if there was that much effort put into this magical corner, why was this left out of it? And what is that statement saying to others that want to do the same thing? So just something to think about in your decision today and in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing that there's no other public comments regarding item number B on our public hearing, Council, I'll bring it back to you for action. And in your action, could you please also close the public hearing at this time?
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt ordinance 24-09, 24-08, and resolution 24-13, and we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the ordinance. I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on this one. I'll start out with Councilmember Morris.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloxham.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith Edmondson. Aye. Councilmember Thomas.
Was that 2413? Did you say that?
Mm-hmm.
The resolution?
He did.
Okay. Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Okay, there you have it. It's unanimous. Okay, that's the last item on our public hearing. Actually, it's the last item on our agenda for tonight. We appreciate everyone's patience. We had 3 continuous meetings here. And council, if you don't have any other unfinished business, then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you everyone here. Thank you for sitting with us tonight. I hope you had a good experience, and everyone enjoy our not so yet spring weather because it'll be snowing this weekend.